Do you remember the biggest stock market party that lasted until November 2021 and had a duration of more than 12 years? I'm sure you remember it quite well. A lot of people in November 2021 thought this party is never, ever going to end. Everybody on YouTube, on social media, motivated. Do you remember the Bitcoiners? Buy and hold, hodl, buy everything, throw your money into the market. It will make you rich. Almost everybody said this, except one, Chamath Palihapitiya. He's one of the guesties on the All In podcast and a fund manager in the United States. Here is what he said in November 2021.
And look, I've been pretty clear about this since November. The marginal trade should have been to be trimming risk. And Nick, maybe you can play the clip because I really want to make sure that it's very clear and on the record what I said almost an entire year ago. Let me put crypto in the context of the markets and where we are today at the end of the week after, Q3 earnings in November of 2021. We have the stock market at absolute all-time highs.
Ripping.
We have crypto at absolute all-time highs.
Ripping.
We have the art markets. I don't know if you guys saw Phillips and Christie's and Sotheby's this past week at absolute all-time highs.
Sold another Beeple for $25 million.
We have inflation at a 30-year high. We have 10-year break-evens at a 25-year high. We have, $1 point some odd trillion that we just approved last week, and we're still horse trading on another $1.8 trillion of stimulus that we're going to put in. And I think the most important thing, which is the two most important founders of our generation, the two smartest people who have really consistently won, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, have collectively sold more than $11 billion of their holdings this year alone. And if you can't take all of that and decide for yourself what's right for you and your family, you're doing yourself a disservice. I think it's important for me to never sort of be forced to tell folks whether I'm buying or selling, although I'm willing to do it in moments where I think it's important. But I think it's really important to understand the context. And so I think these folks that think derisively about individuals who are managing risk, I think it's really naive, and I think it creates a lot of missed opportunity for them as well. If the smartest people in the world are now selling their core holdings that they told you they would never sell, and you are not reconsidering your position on things, you're either much smarter than them or you're being really, really reckless.
Who is Chamath Palihapitiya? Chamath is a highly successful entrepreneur and venture capitalist in the San Francisco Bay Area. In 2021, he was ranked 10th on Forbes magazine's list of new billionaires. Palihapitiya founded Social Capital in 2011 to invest in companies in fields being ignored by other venture capitalists like health, financial services, and education. However, the firm has since expanded to invest in tech companies like Amazon, Tesla, and Slack.
The reason I said all of those things was because I was getting really worried about where we were. And then I think on the heels of that, I published a tweet and I said, I'm starting to sell. And I sold $100 million of SoFi, but then I was a systematic seller through the end of last year and through this year to try to manage my own liquidity because it changed profoundly as I saw what was happening in the markets. So, I think that it's just an important thing to call out that things don't always go up, and you have to pay attention to a mosaic of information, and you have to do the work yourself because, your situation is unique to you. Nobody else understands it. And so you can't outsource that decision to somebody else. Obviously, you can use it as a guide. It's fair to say, when the 13 Fs of important hedge funds come out, do I read them? Of course, because I'm trying to figure out, what don't I know? What may I be missing? Maybe there's a great company in there that I should be taking a look at. So, I'm not dissimilar to everybody else in that I use other people that I look up to or respect as a leading indicator of what to buy. but I still take responsibility for my own decisions and I manage my liquidity as best as I can based on my conditions. And those are always changing. And so I think this is just a good reminder that everybody else has to do the same.
And what Chamath said is basically the contrarian principle that very often we find in quotes from famous investors like Warren Buffett, who said, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. Another famous investor, Nathan Rothschild, said something similar. Buy when there is blood in the streets. Nathan Rothschild lived a few hundred years ago. Or another famous quote also from Rothschild, or at least attributed to Rothschild, buy to the roar of cannons and sell to the sound of trumpets. The big question always is, are we at the top of the mountain already and should we sell? And on the other side, are we already on the bottom of the ocean and should we start to buy now because it can't go any deeper? Let's ask once again Chamath's crystal ball and what he says about the current market situation.
The bad news is I think that it's going to be a really tough, sticky time for the US consumer probably over the next 18 months. And so I tend to think that, through the course of this year and through 2023 and possibly even a little bit of 24, it's going to be a grind. Unemployment will go back up. Inflation will be sticky. Real earnings will shrink. Consumption will ebb. And earnings will not be that great. But the silver lining is I think that we are starting a bottoming process for the equity markets. And I think that by the end of this year or the early part of next year, most of that will be done. And the reason is that, the equity markets, I think, do a reasonable job of one, looking at the bond market, and then two, looking 6 to 9 months into the future and pricing in that future today. And so by the end of this year, beginning of next year, I think that we will have kind of bottomed and we'll start to build a base.
Both clips are from the All In podcast. It's a weekly podcast on which the four besties, Jason Calacanis, David Friedberg, David Sachs, and Chamath Palihapitiya, discuss the macroeconomic environment and give awesome investment tips like when to buy and when to sell. I hope you enjoyed this clip. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get a notification whenever I publish something new. Have a great day.